So for a lot of people, building your own gaming PC can seem pretty daunting, and although you might be able to get better bang for the buck if you do build your own PC, there's still some really awesome pre-built gaming desktops out there that allow you to get in at a pretty budget-friendly price point while still getting some awesome hardware. And today we have the Lenovo Legion Tower 5. It is one of the more budget-friendly options from Lenovo. Comes with an AMD CPU and an NVIDIA GPU. We'll get into the details in a little bit. But this thing is currently marked down from $1,400 to $1,100 on Best Buy. And it's time to see if it's worth the price. So let's jump into it. So let's first get this thing unboxed. So up top, we have a keyboard and, just a keyboard. So a pretty basic wired keyboard, not a gaming keyboard in the least, but at least it comes with a keyboard. So if you're pressed on a budget, you don't have to get a gaming keyboard right away. You can kind of maybe wait it out a little bit. And now let's get the actual PC out of here. So some very heavy-duty packaging from Lenovo. This thing should hopefully be fine in the box and wherever you're getting it shipped. Really, really nice when it comes to the packaging, at least on the outside. We'll see about the inside, but right now I wouldn't expect anything to have gone wrong with this pre-built. So again, let's just get all of this off of here. We also do get another accessory box. So let's see what's in here. We get our power cable, of course, for our PC, and then an external optical mouse, a wired mouse. So again, you have a USB mouse and keyboard if you don't already have maybe a mechanical keyboard and a gaming mouse. So at least you have it, so you're not pressed to buy one right away. And now for the full reveal. So right out of the box, this thing looks the part of a pretty legit gaming desktop. So far, it also looks like it's using pretty off-the-shelf hardware. I can see a pretty standard, regular, full-size ATX power supply on the back. The motherboard I/O looks pretty good as well. Standard graphics card. We'll get into all the details, but so far this thing looks pretty good in terms of not being full of proprietary hardware that you're not going to be able to replace or swap out down the line. But of course, we'll open this thing up and look at all of those hardware components and make sure we're getting what at least we see from the outside. So we can slide off our front glass, and this is a full glass panel. So very, very nice. You even have like the sticker etched on Legion logo. Looks pretty nice from a pre-built desktop. So now that we have the glass off, we can take a deeper look at some of the internal components of our Legion Tower 5. So we do have a Ryzen 7 AMD CPU. So it's a Ryzen 7 5800. So last generation Ryzen processor with 8 cores and 16 threads. Still going to be extremely competitive in the majority of games that you're going to toss at this thing. And pretty much anything else you want to do with this, whether you want to video edit, photo edit, render some crazy scenes, this thing will be able to handle that. And you also then get an NVIDIA RTX 3060. So we're pairing AMD and NVIDIA in this particular build, and that is fine by me. We get the power of an AMD CPU and the power of that NVIDIA graphics card, and this thing should be able to handle pretty much any game you throw at it at 1440p and definitely at 1080 depending on your monitor setup. We also do get a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip on our motherboard, so you have full wireless capabilities with this gaming desktop. You can hook up to Wi-Fi. You can also use your favorite Xbox or PlayStation controllers in order to game. Overall, no kind of losses of creature comforts with this budget gaming desktop. We also then do get some pretty nice cooling on this bad boy as well. You got two 120mm fans on the front, one at the rear, as well as a pretty substantial tower cooler, similar to like a Hyper 212. Seems like it has probably 6 or 8 heat pipes going down onto our 5800 to keep it cool with a 120mm fan as well. And our RTX 3060 is also a dual fan card, so we should get pretty good cooling on all of our hardware. But we'll have to put that to the test in some games and make sure that we don't get any overheating or any complications when it comes to that sort of stuff. Some other creature comforts when it comes to this build. On the back I/O, we get our 1 gigabit Ethernet port on the back, along with 4 USB Type A's for mouse, keyboard, or whatever other peripherals you're looking for. You also get 1 Type C, so you should have pretty good expansion when it comes to that as well. No built-in graphics with the 5800. There's no internal GPU on that CPU, so no HDMI or DisplayPort on the motherboard, but we do get 4 DisplayPort and 1 HDMI out of our RTX 3060. And when it comes to front I/O, or top I/O, I should say, we're going to get 2 USB Type A's along with your mic, headphone, split jacks, at least on this one, not a combo jack, so you can plug in each individual component. But now it's time to look a little bit deeper and dig underneath the hood of this gaming desktop. Let's see how the cable management looks, how everything's set up underneath, and make sure there's no issues when it comes to stuff not being seated properly, plugs not being fully connected, so that when you get this thing out of the box, if you are to order this, you can have, pretty good confidence that it's going to come to you in working condition without having to need to mess with anything. But let's jump into it and just make sure that with our particular PC, there aren't any issues. So with the back opened up, you can see just how clean this thing looks out of the factory from Lenovo. We then also have our 80 plus gold 650 watt power supply. It is a non-modular power supply, so all the cables that are connected to it already are what you're going to have to work with. But Lenovo did a really nice job in terms of laying out the cables. They've already pre-positioned both a SATA cable, an extra SATA cable, as well as an extra SATA power cable if you wanted to add an additional HDD or SSD down here in the hard drive cage. Pretty much just, they've set everything up really nice for you to be able to expand this machine or add anything to it down the line. So overall, the way this thing comes out of the factory, the build quality, at least of this machine, is extremely good, and you shouldn't really be worried about getting your PC and having to mess around with the cables and everything in the back unless you are going out and trying to make an upgrade or add some additional hardware to this desktop. So overall, from a build quality aspect, from a design aspect, from a hardware, like pure specs aspect, this thing is extremely, extremely good for that $1,100 price point. Even the original $1,400 price point is kind of hard to beat with a machine with this level of specs, this build quality, and the upgradability that you even get from a manufacturer like Lenovo. It's kind of unexpected. Like the Dells, the HPs of the world, a lot of their machines are proprietary hardware. This is far from it. For the most part, it's a micro ATX motherboard, an off-the-shelf CPU, GPU cooler, off-the-shelf fans and everything else. The case is very, very upgradable and easy to work in. So this is pretty much a rare sight from a manufacturer like Lenovo, but overall, I'm extremely impressed and happy to see it. But now it's time to put this thing to the test and see how it actually does in games. See if you're going to get the full capabilities out of this machine. If you're looking to game at, let's say, 1440p, let's make sure this thing can actually keep up in games, make sure there's no overheating issues or anything like that. Really test out the full performance of this desktop. And right off the bat, you can see it start up. We also have the built-in RGB all throughout the fans, as well as an RGB strip right at the top as well. I thought what was on the back was actually a fan controller, but it's actually an RGB controller. So all the fans are plugged into the motherboard, but the RGB is all running through that RGB controller. And as you can see, we boot right into Windows and we're off to the races. So that was a super, super smooth startup. Of course, you won't boot directly into Windows like I will with this particular review unit. You will still have a very similar experience booting into the Windows setup menu. So overall, a really simple and easy startup with this machine. Plug and play out of the box, which is what you like to see. But if you do have any issues on startup, you can of course contact Lenovo support. Maybe there's a RAM seating issue or a cable slightly unplugged. Check all those things, but if you do still have issues, of course contact Lenovo, whoever you purchased the machine from, and get some support. But overall, this thing is up and running and it's time to put it to the test. So first things first, let's see what temperatures are like with this machine. So we'll throw the glass side panel back on and see what we're looking at when we're stress testing both the CPU and GPU. Alrighty, so let's kick things off with Cinebench and FurMark and really see how this thing's perform. So we'll throw on our Cinebench run as well as FurMark, do a GPU stress test. And we'll let this run for like 10 minutes or so. By then we should kind of be at our peak temperatures for both our GPU and CPU, and I'll show you guys the results. So as we're getting ready to finish up the stress test, there's like a few seconds left on the Cinebench run. Hopefully you can get a good listen to what the fan noise actually sounds like on this machine. So overall, it's really not that bad. It's decently loud under full load, but that's kind of expected out of any desktop computer. And now that we finished up our Cinebench run, or we're getting very close, let's shut down FurMark. Cinebench just finished, and let's take a look at our max temperatures. So from a CPU perspective, we got up to 89 degrees C, and we kind of leveled off there on the package. We also kind of stayed or hovered around 4.5 to 4.6 gigahertz on all cores throughout the test, which was also very, very nice. Great for performance when it comes to this Ryzen 7 5800. And then on our GPU side of things, we hit a max temperature or an overall package temperature of 70 degrees Celsius with a max hotspot of 82, really focusing on that 70 degrees. So 70C on a GPU, not out of the question whatsoever. Probably still a little bit of extra room for an overclock on that GPU. And then from CPU perspective, 89 is well within the range of the temperature limits of the Ryzen 7 5800. So no concerns there as well. So overall, from a CPU and GPU temperature point of view, there's really no concerns with this machine. Plenty of ventilation at the front, plenty of fans that are just coming with this machine. And if you wanted to add more, you could do that as well and improve the temperatures even more. So overall, very, very good when it comes to temps, but now it's time to see how this thing performs in games. So let's run it through a few different games. Cyberpunk 2077, just to see how this thing can perform with a really high-end title. Maybe Modern Warfare 2 or a game like Fortnite to kind of test out the first-person shooter type game, third-person shooter, and then also Valorant, a little bit easier of a game to run. That way we can see what the max capabilities of this machine are. So we're going to start things off with Valorant, and this should give us a true test of what our maximum FPS capabilities will be on this machine. Now, I am running this thing with two monitors right now in duplicated displays. So I have one that I'm gaming on and one for you, of course, to watch the gameplay. So it's probably more indicative of a streaming setup where you're both recording on one monitor as well as playing the game on another. So we will probably see closer to, a little bit higher FPS if you were to just be gaming versus something like this where you have two monitors streaming the same content. But even still, we're looking at 350 to 400 FPS. There are dips in there to like 180, 250 FPS around there, but on average, we're looking at over 250 FPS at 1440p, pretty much all medium settings to give us the most out of this game, both visually as well as performance-wise. So no complaints playing this game at well over, right now we're sitting at 425 FPS. So this could really top out a 240 hertz 1440p monitor, or if you're playing at 1080, like almost a 360 hertz monitor. So like this thing is perfect for these types of games, but now it's time to jump over to a game like Fortnite, where we should be able to put this thing more to a test. A game that requires a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more graphics involved in that game. So let's jump over to Fortnite. Let's first take a look at our settings. So let me hide real quick. So we'll take a look at our settings when it comes to graphics and visuals. So we're looking at 2560 by 1440, of course, unlimited frame rate. We're looking at pretty much all medium settings outside of epic view distance. But besides that, pretty much all medium with some of the other settings turned on. And we also do have NVIDIA Reflex low latency turned on with boost. So I'm going to close out of this. And we're pretty much looking at right around 135 to 155 FPS. So right around an average of 145 FPS. So this is definitely a full-fledged 1440p gaming machine, but it's time to put it to a bigger test than just Fortnite. And we'll jump over to Cyberpunk 2077, run through that benchmark, and see what this thing can do. So while the Cyberpunk 2077 benchmark loads, running all high settings with DLSS in balanced mode, let me just talk about this PC and the current state of it and what it might look like down the line. So the Legion Tower 5 is an amazing PC as it stands. We have the RTX 3060, we have the Ryzen 7 5800, 16 gigs of RAM that can be upgraded down the line as well, 256 gig SSD, and the 1 terabyte hard drive, along with a 650 watt gold power supply that if you wanted to, you could upgrade and put in an even more powerful GPU into the system down the line as well. So you're getting great hardware as it stands today. 8-core CPU with the 3060 should again do super well in a lot of titles at 1440p like we're seeing today. Plus you're getting really good cooling, a very nice aesthetic and good looking build with the RGB fans, the room for upgrading even to an AIO to cool the CPU if you wanted to as well. This PC is just really good in its current state, especially at the $1,100 price point. Even at the $1,400 price point, I would definitely recommend this thing. And it's also a great PC for the future because you can upgrade a lot about this computer. Some things you can upgrade, like the size. It is a smaller form factor build with a micro ATX power supply or a micro ATX motherboard, and it only has an additional 4X slot in terms of PCIe slots. So you're not going to add in a bunch of extra cards, but you're going to be able to upgrade and service and swap things out as you want down the line. So it's a great PC for today and also a great one for the future. But it looks like our benchmark finished up, so let's see how this thing performed. So all high settings, DLSS and balance mode, we're looking at 86 FPS on average, maximum of 110. It's pretty good for running a game like Cyberpunk and all high settings with DLSS on. So again, this thing just proves itself once again in these games. Valorant 400 FPS, Fortnite at 150 FPS, and now in a game like Cyberpunk at 90 FPS. It's just overall really cool to see a PC at this price point with this type of look and the build quality of this thing performing this well in games. So if you guys are looking for this PC, it'll be of course linked down in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.